So recently I have completed Infosys interview. These are the question what interviewer asked to me. So very first question, tell me something about your technologies and explain your project. So it is differ from person to person. So I explained about my technology stack, like I am working on Spring Boot, JPA, and apart from that Kafka. So you can explain according to you microservices, MySQL, Oracle, and also you can explain your UI related technologies like Angular, React Native, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So you can explain accordingly, and you have to prepare your project, what you did and what you are doing currently. So at least two projects you have to remember and you have to prepare accordingly, and you should be able to explain all the questions so that normal person also can understand how you have completed this project and what is the flow of that project. So second question he asked about from core Java. So what is immutability? How to create immutable class? So first he asked what is immutability. So immutability is nothing but like you can't change the content of an object. So if you want to change the object, the class should be mutable so that you can change the content. But if you don't want to change the content of object, that facility is available in Java so that we can create our class immutable, so no one can change our content. So like strings are immutable in Java, and apart from that wrapper classes are also immutable in Java. Once you have initialized, you can't change their object. Create a immutable class. You can follow some rules, like if I want to create a immutable class, let me create one immutable class for you so that you can understand how to. Okay, here I will create one class here, my immutable. So in my immutable class I have two variables. So first of all, class should be final so that no one can extend your class. So I will declare my class as final so that no one can extend this class and create a child. Second, whatever the variables available inside your class, variable also you have to declare as final, so they will initialize only once. You can't initialize or you can't assign multiple values, multiple times values to that variable. So in that case I will create one id that is final. So what final keyword does, it allow only once to initialize your variable. Here if you see, it is giving one error. So the blank final field may not have been initialized. So you need to initialize. Either you can initialize directly here, but I want to initialize at runtime, so that I will create one constructor and I will initialize these fields using constructor. So only once you can initialize, either directly or you can use constructor as well. So I will be using constructor. Second, here it is a string, this is name, and suppose you have some class x here. Okay, in that x class you have two variables, int I comma j, and one method you have. Suppose you have one method function x. Inside this method you have only one statement, that is inside function x. Okay, so okay, so I have two fields here and I also have this x field. So I also want to create instance of my custom class. So this is my custom class and I want to create instance here. Now you need one constructor so that we can initialize these fields. So I will create one constructor using field. So you can create directly here from using source to generate. Where it is, Yeah, okay. So we have created this constructor. Let me arrange. Okay, fine. Okay. So we have three fields, ID, name, and we have one custom object. If you see here, we have initialized only once. If also I want to initialize once again, see here, this dot x is equal to 56. So assignment operator will not work because you have already initialized this x. So only once you can initialize this variable so that no one can change your content. Okay. And in the case of we are not going to write any setter method. If we write setter method, anyone can change our content, but in that case we are not writing any setter method. So first step, create class as final. Second step, create variables as final. Third step, create a constructor so that you can initialize the fields. Third step is done, and then fourth we have to write only getter method, not setter method. So I will write getter method only. So generate getter and setter, I will write only getter method. Okay, even id also generate only getter method, it won't generate the setter methods. See, so up to here it is fine, because if you see the string class is also immutable. Okay, it is final class, all the variables inside it all final. Okay, so string class is fine, and int is primitive, so no need to do worry about it. And the class, if you see, class is not final class. So if you have this type of situation, then you have to either declare this class as immutable, or you can do one thing. Instead of providing this directly, you need to provide, you have to create one new object and copy all the content to it, and then return this new object, not actual object. So I am creating one object here, x is equal to new x1 is equal to new x, and copy all the fields, whatever the fields you have. X1 dot I is equal to x dot I. This is called deep copy. You are copying entire object to new object j, so this reference won't be available to other pupils. Here I am returning this. So this is the expected question they may ask. That's why I've created one custom class. But in the case of primitive or predefined class, if they are immutable, then need not to worry about. But in the case of custom class, either we have to create our class as immutable, or we have to do this deep copy and then return this proxy object. We are not returning actual object. This is the proxy object what we are returning. So the later, if he want to update this x dot I, then it will change this object, not this actual object. So that is the question expected from immutability. Okay, so how it is worked. So second question, what is Spring Boot? Spring Boot is, we can say, module of Spring framework, and in this module we have lots of facilities, like we can create our project and fastly, like we need to provide this dependencies, starter dependency. I will show you. Okay, here Spring Boot starter project, if I want to create. So in this starter project, see here I have all the dependencies called starter dependencies. Like I want to add some dependencies, web. Okay, so we have a Spring Web. I want to use JPA, Spring JPA. Then I want to use H2. for in-memory database. Okay. Also I want to use security, Spring security. We have starter dependency. These are called starter dependency. These are nothing but bunch of jar files. So earlier what happens in Spring applications, we have multiple jar files we need to include in our class path. But in the case of Spring Boot, it automatically configure, or we can say it automatically provides these jar files, and we need not to worry about their conflicts and all. So if you see here, I will create this project.